First thing I want to start off with here is just who this webinar is for. And I think most of you may have seen my video I sent out today. And it was just about how when you are wanting to be location independent or a digital nomad, someone who's able to live where you want at the same time as running your own business, often people associate that with like being lazy on the beach or not wanting to work. And what I found is it's actually the opposite, that in order to have a business that will give you that level of freedom where you can be in, like as I was in Costa Rica working with clients back home in Canada, or you're living in Thailand and you're working with people back in the US, you actually need to be a lot more professional and you need to have better business strategies, better marketing, because things don't just sort of fall in your lap then. You don't run into clients. And you also need to really impress your clients because there's a little more barrier to entry if you're on the other side of the globe, right? Where maybe there's a little less trust. So what tends to be the case is to really succeed with the level of freedom, you have to be doing your business at a higher level. And so what that means is if you have very little interest in the travel, where you're more about your business, you might want to travel a bit more, but you're not trying to bounce around the world, then this is still the right place for you, because we're going to be focused on the business, and that business will empower you to travel, to work from home, to move across the country or the world, whatever it is you want to do. That's up to you. But I'm here to focus on the business side so that you can have more resources and more independence, more freedom there. Whatever you want to do with it is up to you. Traveling part, I can give some tips in that, but it's not too hard. The business side is what we really want to figure out here today. So the term free freelancer, to me, it is beyond a freelancer. Yes, if you're a freelancer, let's say you're a freelance writer, most of the time you can sort of travel or do your own thing. But what a free freelancer is someone who is a coach, a consultant, or just a freelancer providing some kind of service and has the freedom and independence to set your own schedule and your own location. So that doesn't just mean that you can live in kind of a third world country somewhere. It means if you want to live in Paris or London or New York, a larger city, that you have the income to do that, and that you also have the control of your time so that you're not having to work, I'm here at 1 a.m., but having to work evenings because your clients back home demand that you be on call on all these sorts of hours and that kind of thing. So to me, this is the goal, and what I would say is that next level of freedom to strive for, and what I'll do my best with this training here to help you move towards. If you're not too familiar with me, I have been working as a coach since 2013, working with people around life design, around entrepreneurship and freelancing, as well as some stuff on the psychological side with confidence and personality type and figuring out your strengths and weaknesses and that side of things as well. One of the things that's always been part of my DNA, and I kid you not, since like pre-puberty parts of my DNA, has been not working with, I should say, but having like something in me to want to help business owners and help people sort of live their dream, like in terms of whatever that passion is, whatever it is they're trying to do. I grew up in this small town in Vancouver called Steveston. It's like a village that doesn't even have its own municipality anymore. It's been taken over, a little fishing village. And I remember seeing the local businesses that you'd have all these passion businesses that would open up, right? And they'd have an armor store, a hockey card store, all this stuff. And I remember being really sad when they closed down and something happened. And when I was 13, I was decent on computers, and I started a business with a friend of mine making flyers, where we would actually design flyers and deliver them for the local businesses. and that. So it was like an upgraded Paperboy essentially. And so it's always been in my blood, shall we say, in terms of this passion of mine. I want to start off with a bit of my story in terms of my path as a freelancer, and give you a little insight into, I guess, my ways of thinking, and also what that journey can look like in terms of kind of making that transition to location independence and that, and also share some of the business lessons that I picked up along the way. And then we're going to move into some very specific business training as well that I think will make a big difference in your business. So I had the privilege in some ways of starting an office job when I was 18, and that was working the summers while I was at university in this office. And as office jobs go, it was pretty good actually. I had some autonomy, I got to use some creativity, paid decent. It wasn't a bad gig, but nonetheless, I knew very soon that was not what I wanted for my life. And there were a few reasons why. One was that feeling of being like forced or trapped, that morning dread, like when you wake up and you do not want to go and you know you have to, like someone else is making you do that. And like I love working hard. I'll get up early, I'll put in lots of hours. I mean, it's 1 a.m. here in Prague. I like working. That feeling of being forced to do it, though, really bugged me and bugs me to this day. And I think the bigger issue behind that was wastefulness. So I remember, I could work really hard. I could do great on a project and maybe be finished by lunchtime. Do you think anyone lets you go home? Do you think anything changes? No, you have to come back and play solitaire or talk on, at the time it was MSN Messenger. I remember talking to all my other friends who had office jobs, right? And that feeling of wastefulness, like of wasting potential and wasting time, I think more than anything is what I really, really hated. And knew sort of from that point it wasn't going to be the path for me. And being a bit of a jack of all trades, when I finished school, I tried a lot of different things. I did door-to-door sales. I knew roughly that if I wanted to work for myself, I needed to learn how to talk to people and sell. That would be sort of, I think I read it in a book somewhere or someone told me, but I knew that much. So I thought door-to-door sales, that will be fun. If any of you have done door-to-door sales, you know the answer to that, right? And I then worked a little bit in finance. I then started a personal development publication. So you can see this passion of mine for like personal growth, personal development. It went way back. And I tried all these different things. And the last thing I mentioned, that personal development publication, it didn't go so well. And I found myself, like, as you would in this case, super broke. I put any money I had and then some in terms of credit cards and all that into this business. It was what I wanted to do, and I poured everything into it, but did not work. I'll spare you the tears and the crazy stories for now. And so I found myself starting out super broke and really out of desperation turned to freelancing. I was looking at job sites occasionally, that look at job sites where you don't want to get a job per se or like really go after it, but you're looking, just maybe there's something perfect. Maybe there's someone that will, save me. And I ultimately knew that was not going to be my path. And so I started copywriting at that point, and I will share in a couple slides exactly how I started and got my first clients. And I was really starting it out of desperation. But as soon as I did, I found myself really enjoying it, like learning about writing and kind of working with clients. And like the clients were actually pretty interesting people. And I started to like it quite a bit. If you don't know, by the way, because this webinar is not about copywriting, it's about all kinds of freelancing and coaching. Copywriting is writing specifically for marketing. So nothing to do with the law. I've had, my own brother thought that for a little bit. He was wondering how I was a lawyer. It's writing for the sake of advertising, essentially. And in the case of the way I was working is it was partially writing and in terms of providing that service, but also consulting. And if you take anything away from today, from the webinar, it's that whatever service you're providing, you could be doing graphic design, accounting, it's like software engineering, programming, website development, whatever it is you're doing as a service, you want to strive for also being a consultant or an expert, where your clients are not only paying for you to do the work, but they're paying for you to be that expert who advises them and that they trust to sort of direct them. Because that's the level where the dynamic with the client, the relationship really changes, and obviously the rates as well change. So if you take one thing away, it's that whatever service you provide that, and you're a consultant, where you're providing that strategy and that big picture thinking as well. And I will say everything that I'm teaching here today and that I teach in general is geared towards that, to being seen by your client as a true professional, where they're going to respect you, they're going to be happy paying you more. It's not where they would sort of talk down to you or dictate. They kind of come to you for that advice and that guidance. So I started out in Vancouver, Canada, as you can see here at the beginning of the journey, and it was at the end of 2010. You'll often probably hear me saying 2011, but officially end of 2010 was when I started as a copywriter, and I actually started just by placing this note on Facebook. This specific strategy doesn't quite work as well now because Facebook has changed a lot in 7 years. But the same concept still works. So essentially, I think it was on a Sunday night, I decided for sure, I committed I wanted to start copywriting, and I posted this a few days later. I think that's off the top of my head, though, in terms of the Sunday. You guys can check the date there. But I posted this note and basically just was saying that I'm a copywriter now. I want to try this out. And if you have need to hire someone, try me out. I'll be cheap. And obviously, being a writer, I put work into the style, the quality, like trying to make it an appealing note. But that's all I did. I posted it as a Facebook note. I tagged some of my friends with or without their permission who I knew were more connected. And so if I tagged them, the note would show up on their, I guess, not newsfeed, their profile at the time, their wall. And so other people would see it. And this was how I got started. And within a couple hours of that, I had people inquiring. A couple people reached out to me who I had worked with before. One was someone who was a friend of a friend who'd seen it. And this is how I got started, and got started sort of right off the bat that way. And that next year, so the entire year basically of 2011, I worked as a copywriter. And it was good from a learning perspective. It was very bad from a paying the bills perspective. And so remember I mentioned, like, when I went into this, I was already in debt. There was no savings. There was no, I wasn't even one of those smart people who has debt and savings. I just had debt. And I started off charging at $16 an hour, which is not a great rate. To give you a perspective, at the time, I think minimum wage in Canada, where I was $8 or $10 an hour. And Vancouver is a very expensive city. So this rate was not going to be covering rent much, let alone getting out of debt or doing much. But it was enough to sort of get the ball rolling and get started, and I was happy with that. And throughout the first year, I continued through kind of working, getting some clients, had some rough lessons in there, but the end of the year, I decided that I was going to make the leap to location independence. That, I was not really doing well in Vancouver, but I might as well not do well in Costa Rica. I had always had this dream of living in 5 countries before I turned 30. I don't know where it came from exactly, but I'd had this dream. And I decided I might as well give it a try. I'm a bit of a risk taker that way, where I find if I put myself in a situation, I tend to figure it out. If I wait for it to be perfect, I will procrastinate it for the rest of my life. And so with that, I basically bought this plane ticket. I had enough points to get me to New York, and then from New York, I needed to buy a separate one-way ticket to Costa Rica. And so I sold as much as I could and made this trip. And Costa Rica was really the turning point for my business. And it happened for a couple of reasons. One is it turned out to be a lot more expensive than I thought and probably than you would think. So heads up, depending on where you live, Costa Rica is about on par with most American cities, if not more expensive for some things. And so, yeah, not like some cheap place to kind of go as a nomad. So that was bad. But what that did is it gave me some pressure, and it also had eliminated a lot of my distractions. I was there, I didn't really know many people, and I had perfect weather, a good home office sort of set up, and it was, let's get down to work, let's figure this out. And so I started putting more time on like thinking about my strategies, reflecting on things I'd learned from a mentor and getting some more advice there, and really just like, yeah, hitting the pavement basically out of desperation with it. And very quickly things started to change in terms of my rates. And it was partially from how I marketed my services, partially by like things adding up. So this is why I would insist that you persist. That sounded very Zig Ziglar. Basically, don't quit, because all the work you're doing adds up and it compounds. And so you might be working for 6 months or a year and not getting too many results, but that's all adding up. People are getting to know you. People are telling other people about you. And eventually it has a snowball effect. And that's part of what happened with me. And so within the first month of being in Costa Rica, I actually had enough extra income to surprise my brother and fly him down, to buy him a ticket to come down. You can see us back here. And so it was a big turnaround in terms of the business. I was set up with a retainer. The first one was at $2,200, $2,250 a month, just guaranteed essentially. A retainer, if you don't know, is where you're basically either paid to be available to work or just paid as basically like you're on call for the work we need. We're not sure how much it will be. So at the same time, I also changed how I was marketing some of my sessions. And you can see here in terms of the hourly rates, really moving things up in terms of how I was structuring my packages and how I was charging. And things were really started to turn around then. So it was after that first year of a lot of work, putting it in with a lot of struggle, where I started to see some of the dividends come through. From Costa Rica, I moved to New York. New York was just a place that I'd always wanted to live, because why would you not, really? And New York and this Jaffa Cafe specifically was really special to me. And it's the reason I have that there instead of a photo of like the skyline or whatever else, is because I'd been to New York a couple of years ago visiting a friend who lived in the East Village, sleeping on a sofa for a week, which is, in New York, a sofa is like a 4-star hotel, really. And we went to this Jaffa Cafe late one night, and we're just talking about our lives and what we wanted. And one of the things for me was to live in different countries and as well to live in New York specifically. And I took a matchbox from that cafe that night and kept that with me. And it was a bit of motivation, like, I'll be back, I'll do it. And I've unfortunately lost that now. I'll be spending March in New York, so I'll go back and get another one. But I kept that with me until I actually had moved back to New York then. And then when I was in New York, I I didn't know what the next place I wanted to go. And my friend who was living in New York was telling me that he was moving over to Europe. So people always ask me about Europe, why I came. And it was in New York where I made the leap, or the leap to Europe, because my friend was moving over there. And I said, you know what, I'll go. That was really the only reason there. So from New York, I moved to Germany, and it was in Germany where, Hamburg specifically, where I landed my first 5-figure project. And this was following basically, you saw before there were some higher hourly packages, but I was doing these small things, $500, $700, these sorts of things. And even though they weren't that much work, it's still, you have to do a lot of them. And so I started using consultative selling, which is something I'm going to be going through later in this webinar. And I started using that approach to put together my proposals and really learning about the client and coming up with bigger offerings. And that's how this proposal came about. And that. So it was a big leap in terms of business, as you can imagine, moving up to that. And it really came down to two things: to changing the selling process and the proposal process, and then also a bit with confidence, because when I was thinking how much to charge this client, I was, honestly thinking maybe $5,000, $6,000, $4,000. I didn't really know, because I was insecure. I knew I was good at what I did within reason, but I didn't know how much to charge, and insecurity came in. And I had a chat with a friend of mine, and he just laid it out for me. No, double that. You should be charging way more for this work. And just from that conversation, from him saying charge more, I did, and the client was, like that, no problem. It was well within their ballpark. And so thinking about it, had I not had that one conversation, I would have charged half as much. I would have missed out on, I think, $5,000, $6,000, whatever that number was on it. And one thing, I'm never an advocate of just charge more, charge more. I advocate get better, and earn more. But there's times where, because of our own inexperience or insecurity, we're actually undercharging. And that was the case in this, where this project was worth as much as I charged, if not more, but I was going to undercharge because I didn't really believe in myself fully. And yeah, that's not good. From there, I made the move to Bologna, Italy. As a writer, who wouldn't want to live in Italy? It's one of those things. And in Italy, there were a few things that really stuck with me. One was around the importance of the expert positioning and getting across your knowledge to potential clients. And that came about because when I'd been back in Vancouver, I had done a few speaking events, small things for free meetup groups, where I'd given a presentation about landing pages. And initially when I did it, I got people were sort of interested. A few people came to a paid workshop after, but I didn't get a flood of business from it. I maybe made $500, $1,000 maybe from it, something like that. It wasn't anything huge considering the amount of work I put into this presentation. But fast forward now, and I'm in Italy. This is over a year since I've left Vancouver, and I get an email from someone who saw me in that presentation, and they want to hire me for a project that turns out to be another 5-figure project. And they didn't care, at least not very much, that the internet in my Italian apartment, which was very Italian, in that when you turn the oven on, the entire building's power shut down, meaning the internet was also very Italian, which means it doesn't work very well. So we had calls dropped. We ran into these issues where I was freaking out, really, really nervous about it. But because I'd laid that groundwork and they already saw me as a professional and as an expert, it was okay. And And it also meant that was why they contacted me. I wasn't bidding on a job on Upwork. I wasn't going after them. And there's nothing wrong with going after clients. I've got lots of clients that way as well. But it meant that even though I was on the other side of the world, they went after me. And I was the only one they talked to about this job. And so that really stuck with me in terms of that importance of that kind of a marketing strategy. The other thing from Italy quickly was the importance of kind of mentorship or getting another opinion on things. I mentioned that conversation I'd had with my friend about that client. Well, that same client turned out to be a bit of a problem, and I got an email from them. They disappeared for about a month after I'd completed a lot of the work, and I got an email from them saying, long story short, basically that they'd met with another copywriter and they were told my work wasn't good and blah, blah, blah. And they, wanted to try this other copywriter. And you can imagine that has put you in like a very negative state where one is you're maybe insecure about your work, upset about it. I definitely was like, did I suck? Like I never want to let a client down. But also at the time, I think there was still $4,000 left to be paid or something on this proposal, and that also, we like to get paid. And so I emailed my mentor and I asked him about it. And doing what I would do, I gave him this long-winded, here's everything that's happening, blah blah blah, and he just responded, she doesn't want to pay you. She's screwing around. Like he could tell whatever it was with his expertise that it wasn't anything wrong with my work. It wasn't whatever it was. Because if there was an issue with the work, she would have come to me and said, hey, like, can we make this better? Or how can we adjust this? Because she was totally happy. But basically she ran out of money or changed her business direction or whatever it was. It's not my concern at that point. And so that one email gave me the confidence to go back to her and say, no, like if you wanted to change the work, we could have met, I would have worked with you. You're just like trying to sour this relationship essentially. And she paid. She said, okay, like that's fair. And then, she paid for it. And so that also stuck with me in terms of that value is, it depends obviously on the kind of person you are, but if you're a little more sensitive, like I can be as well, then sometimes you can get rattled by clients if something goes off or that, and getting that second perspective to be like, hey, you didn't do anything wrong, it's okay. And that can be really, really reassuring rather than sort of getting stuck in your own head. After that, I made the move to Barcelona, which right now is a bit of a war zone, but when it's not a war zone, is one of the best cities in Europe to live in for sure. Sunny almost every day, beautiful beaches, and despite all the beaches and the sunshine, Barcelona is where I launched my coaching practice, where I finished my first 2 books and got those into publication and grew my website quite a bit as well. And that was all from setting up a really good routine and staying focused. And that was one of my big takeaways there. After Barcelona, sort of the rest is history. Moved back to Hamburg for a year. And then I ended up making the move to Prague, which is where I've been since the end of 2014. And if you are thinking of kind of becoming a digital nomad or traveling a lot, one of the things you might find you do is you might want to do it for a couple years and then find that you want to settle down. Either maybe it's move back home, or maybe you sort of pick your favorite city and it becomes a home base where you travel like 3 to 6 months of the year, or have 2 or 3 homes. This is very common with some of my friends. They might spend winters in Asia and then summers in Europe and then a bit of time in the US or Canada and this sort of thing, because over time, just continuously traveling, as amazing as it sounds, you start to want more community and more some level of kind of consistency in that as well. Okay, so one of the things I want to touch on really quickly, for those of you who are just in the very early stage where you're not yet working as a freelancer and you're thinking about the right route, which I know a lot of you are already actively working. You have your business, but I just want to touch on this quickly. Is that I think freelancing is a much better way to start than jumping into what would be called like a product business or an expert business where you're writing, like you make a course or you're writing an ebook. And the reason I think this is there's a couple factors. One is that when you start off with freelancing, it's one of, and might not always feel this way, but it is one of, if not the easiest ways to get a good enough income right off the bat to get started and be able to either quit your job or work from home or start traveling. Whatever that freedom goal is for you, it can get you there the fastest. And the reason is that, let's say you have 1,000 people you're selling to. This could be your network, an email list, a Facebook group, just we'll say 1,000 people for the sake of argument, right? Is you could have a $47 product or a $10 book or a $1,500 service package. Which do you think is probably the most likely to sell on a unit basis? So what will people buy the most of those three items? If you want to let me know in the chat. So you have a book for $10, a course for $47, and a service package for $1,500. All around sort of the same topic, but there are three different ways that people can get the content. What do you think will sell the most? Course, I see book, course. So a book. So in my experience, on a per unit basis, the book would likely sell the most, maybe twice as much. A guide or a course, like something for say $47, will probably sell about the same as the service package in terms of the amount of units. And if we then step back and do the math on what that is in terms of your income, let's say you sell 20 books, you're at $200. You sell one service package, you're at $1,500. You sell 3 service packages, you're at $4,500. And the reason that service packages often sell as well or better is that one, there's a lot of information, a lot of books, and a lot of guides out there. And so there's a lot of competition that way. And if you're looking to buy a book, if someone wants to buy a book on copywriting, let's say, they can buy a book from the best copywriters who've ever lived on the face of the earth. I picked up a book the other day, I don't know where it is, called Scientific Advertising. It was $3. It's considered arguably the best book ever written on copywriting. $3, right? So there's a lot of competition there if you're on the book side. More than that, a lot of business owners and a lot of people in general, they don't want to have to do the work. If you own a really popular restaurant and you want to improve your website, you don't want to buy a book on how to make a website. You don't want to take a course on how to make a website. You want your website made, and you're willing to pay 10 or 20 or 30 times more to get it actually made. And so you end up selling roughly the same amount, offering a service package. I found this when I launched my coaching services first in 2013. I was launching it from scratch. I had an email list of 300 people who'd sort of been following my blog, which was very new. There wasn't a lot on the blog. And of these 300 people, when I offered coaching, 5 became clients. And that gave me a base income right away of $1,200 for my coaching, which allowed me to free up some of my time and put more effort then into the coaching. If I had have launched a book to them for $10, maybe I would have sold 30 or 40 books, but then I don't sell anything else. With the coaching, it was $1,200 every month, ongoing, from the same sort of offer to the same group. The other thing that happens is when you offer a service, what ends up happening is that you really gain that expertise and you develop your knowledge so that later, if you do want to write a book or offer a course or teach people, you have really specific, valuable knowledge because you've actually worked with people rather than just sort of guessing and Googling things and trying to make a quick buck or that sort of approach. Cool. Also, I'll add quickly with freelancing, the other thing is you build a lot of really core business skills in a pretty relatively, compared to other types of business, easy environment and nice environment where you can learn about sales and discipline and organization and all these sorts of things. So one of my goals for you, if you are here today, is to get to that $100 an hour mark. And there's a really specific reason for it, aside from just wanting to go party and buy Dom Perignon or whatever it is. Shouldn't, even at $100 an hour, you shouldn't be buying Dom Perignon. But there's a specific reason. And what it is that when you get over a certain threshold, it frees up a lot more of your time and your mental energy. So if most of us, our expenses are relatively fixed. Obviously, you earn more, you spend a bit more, but generally our base costs to live are about the same. So if you're charging, like I was, at 16 bucks an hour, you got to be working a lot of hours a week, like 30, 40 billable hours. And usually in freelancing, for every hour you bill, you have another hour of like marketing, admin, organizing yourself, all that, right? So you have to be billing a lot of hours to get by. And that doesn't leave you with a lot at the end of the day in terms of, money to reinvest, maybe to hire a virtual assistant or to do some advertising or to hire someone else to build your website. So you end up in a case where you're doing everything for yourself when you're stretched really thin and you don't have a lot of time or hours to reinvest in like education even. Here I might be a little too generous in terms of sort of the excess, right? Once you're able to get your rates up, then you're able to have a lot more free time and you can reinvest that in marketing. You can get better at what you do. You can study your craft. You can take courses, have mentors, read books, like just practice on your own, whatever it is, and get a lot better, which allows you to further charge more. And you create a really positive loop rather than the other way. At the 30 an hour, it's sort of more like being trapped in a hamster wheel or whatever it is. And this side, it's like a positive effect where you're creating, it gets better and better. And that. So there's an element to this where you're probably saying like, of course, right? Of course I want to be making the $100 an hour. Like, thanks, Dan, right? I get it. But the thing is you can make that shift a lot quicker than you think. And sometimes that might involve turning down lower paid clients so you have the time to improve your marketing, or you have the space to hunt the really good clients who will pay you more, because the reward is like if you can do 20 hours at 25 bucks an hour or 5 hours at 100, it's like monumentally better to do the 5 at 100, where you can then have that extra time to learn, to invest, to improve your business, and get in a really positive cycle there. So for me, I think it's really important to have this vision of where you're moving to. I'm not a huge law of attraction guy, but I definitely think if we don't know where we want to go, we're never going to get there. So having that goal, also knowing that it's possible, that's one of the reasons that I go through some of my specific numbers. I didn't used to do this on the webinar, like here's what I charge specifically or that, but I do think it's really valuable to actually know someone who's doing what it is you want to do. It makes it much more tangible and real. I know like in my entrepreneur circles, there's people that I like I would consider good friends that I'll go out with regularly who are in a whole nother level in terms of like 7, 8 figures. And it it makes it possible where you're like, oh, okay, I understand. Like you're a pretty normal dude or a pretty normal girl. Like, and it changes your thinking rather than it being like some impossible thing that no one does if you don't meet people who actually do it. That's at least my theory on it. Um, so one of those goals I would say is if you're starting out or right now you're in sort of the $20 to $50 an hour range, I would say a goal I would set is to be at 100 or more an hour within 12 to 18 months. It could happen sooner for you, but I think it's better to have a realistic goal with it. Then you take that time and you can reinvest it in growth and systems and marketing and all that. And then you can look at diversifying your income, uh, writing books or doing teaching or doing other things as well to sort of further grow that as well. So I want to jump into a really important concept. It's a high level concept that is going to it's going to change how you deal with aspects of your business, with clients, probably even your personal life. You might start to think about it a little bit differently. And and it's this concept of value. And wherever we are, whatever we're doing, on some level, value is being exchanged. And I don't mean that we're doing things for money or using people or anything like that. But I mean is that we're like people receive some kind of value from what you do. You could be out with a friend, and the value you receive from them is that they're always making you laugh, and then you feel good. You're not thinking like, oh yeah, I can go steal their jokes, right? But if you really break it down from sort of a creepy analytical way, you're receiving value from them because they make you laugh, they make you feel good, right? Maybe someone you get value from them because they're someone who always listens or you can depend on them or that sort of thing. Value isn't about price. It can definitely be related to it as well. And ultimately understanding value and the value your clients get from you is the key to charging more and having more freedom. Because if you understand what they really want and you can give that to them, they don't care if you're on a beach in an Italian villa somewhere, if you're working weird hours. They don't care because you're giving them that value. The reason clients will want you, aside from stupid bureaucratic policies, the reason clients want you in their office at certain hours to meet with them or want you to fit this schedule of theirs or whatever that is because they don't really know what value they're getting from you or you haven't clearly illustrated it for them. So they're sort of looking at time as the value. Like, well, we don't know how to measure what we get from this person, so we're just going to expect their time or their presence. Value is, I'll use an example, and it's an easy example with it. Look at, say, a bottle of water, right? What is that value of water? If you're at home normally, maybe nothing. If you like, I drink tap water personally. Bottle of water is almost worthless. If you're on a webinar and you have to talk for a couple hours, maybe a bottle of water is worth a couple bucks. If you're out at a concert or you're on an airplane or you're somewhere where there's not an easy way to get cheap water, maybe that bottle of water is worth $5, $10, right? In that moment, it's really hot out. That's what that could be worth. You're stuck in a desert. You've been walking for days. You're on the verge of death. You have a bag with gold in it. Don't ask me why you're walking through the desert with a bag of gold, but you do. And someone has a bottle of water. Do you trade all that gold for the water? Maybe, right? Because for you in that moment, there's a different value for that water. I would hit them with the gold and just try to run with the water, but that's me. So the important thing to keep in mind is with value is it has to be perceived by that other person, into really for them to appreciate it at the highest level. So you can be doing something for your client where you know that it's an amazing, something amazing in terms of, oh, I'm doing all this cool technical stuff and oh, this is so great. But if they're not seeing that as valuable, or maybe it's not actually getting them the results they want because it's sort of a cool nerdy thing that you like, or as a copywriter, it's like, oh, this is really cool, but it's not getting them results, then they're not perceiving the value and they're not even really like getting the value. They're not receiving that value as well. So understanding, how to give your clients value, and we're going to go through some questions that can really help you do that. Understanding that and helping them also perceive the value, like making sure they know how your work connects with their results and their goals, can have a huge impact on what they'd be willing to charge. So often, if you've worked in like a larger company before, or you're working at a very basic freelance level of, here you get $30 an hour, this is what you're earning, you don't necessarily know about like where that value is being exchanged. You might be working for a large company, and the distance between what you do and the end person in terms of that value that you're giving to society or to a group of people, there might be so many layers between you and that you're not really used to perceiving that value, to knowing how your work makes an impact. And that's one of the nice things about working for yourself, of course, is you can see the results of your work usually, but it means having to retrain yourself in terms of thinking about the real deeper underlying value that's happening here. So I want to jump into a bit of a quiz. With this, I want to say, whatever level you're thinking at, try to go one level deeper in terms of the motivations, the emotions, the underlying things that are going on for people. So in this picture, anything you want to take here, we've got a woman who, let's say, is a professional dog walker, right? This is her job. We've got a weirdly underdressed man selling flowers. What are some examples of value that is being exchanged in this photo? Not necessarily exactly in this photo, but what is some value that a flower company has? What value does a dog walking business provide? If you see something else in the photo, share that. But just in the chat right now, sharing specifically what you see as examples of value that's actually being exchanged, or could be being exchanged, I should say, from these kinds of businesses. Okay, so we have flowers are, flowers are beautiful, make people happy. Saving time. So for example, with the dog walker, the beauty of the people themselves, it's true. Although you're from the Netherlands, you're the tall, beautiful people country. So with someone like a dog walker, the obvious thing is that they save you time, right? Or they allow you to do something you couldn't ordinarily do. So let's picture your typical dog walking client. Maybe they're in a city like a New York or London, Los Angeles. They work really long hours and they don't have time to go home and walk their dog. But dogs need to be walked or they go crazy and all kinds of other stuff. And so people will hire someone to go by their house and walk their dog. the normal answer we think about right away is it saves time. But if you're a dog walker and your marketing is I'll save you time, and you have competition and the other dog walker says I'll save you time, cool. What does the person decide when they're trying to pick between these two dog walkers? Who's cheaper, right? I want fine, you both save me time. Who's cheapest, right? Who's not gonna, I want a bare minimum of trust where you're not gonna rob my house or kill my dog. And after that, I don't care. I want the cheapest person. But what if we look below the surface? What are some emotions that could be going on for someone who is hiring a dog walker? Well, one thing is probably guilt. They've bought this dog and deep down they know that it's probably not super happy living in an apartment or home all day, getting a little walk. And they're working these crazy hours and they obviously love this animal, but they're not feeling so good about it because they're not being a great owner necessarily, right? And so what if you had one dog walker who says, yeah, I save you time. I will, go there. I won't break anything in your house or kill your dog, ideally. I'm $10 an hour. Then you have another dog walker. You come along and you say, you know what? I'm going to, I love dogs, and they can see you have this love of dogs, this passion with them. And you say, yeah, what we do is we go to the park and there's these other dogs we play with, and then we go to this training ground and we do this fun stuff and blah, blah, blah. And basically you paint a picture that the dog is going to have even more fun than if the owner took it out, right? Now their owner, not only is their time being saved, but their guilt is being alleviated. And this animal that they love, they're feeling a very positive emotion. Okay, this will be really good for the dog. This isn't me being a bad owner by working too much. This is me being a great owner, taking care of my animal, bringing it to this cool doggy daycare thing, whatever. And as the dog walker who does all this great stuff, you charge $30 instead of the 10. I'll tell you, if price is not a big object, like you have a client whose big corporate job, $10 or $30, it's not a big deal. They're drinking $10 bottles of water when they don't need to. They're not even in the desert. That person is going to go for the $30 an hour where there's more value. So on the dog walking, that is something to think about, the deeper underlying aspects of it. Of course, we also have, with the flowers, flowers can be naturally beautiful on their own, like a gift in themselves. You can go deeper where for some people, maybe they flowers to them symbolize love. Maybe when they were growing up, their parents, their dad would always buy their mom flowers, and they've been married 50 years and it's this symbolic thing for them. And so the flower is not this beautiful object. The flower means to them commitment, love, I'm there for you, support, something on a deeper level as well. And knowing these things about your clients is going to allow you to sell more flowers or sell your flowers for more, and charge more, for walking dogs. I don't suppose anyone here is actually a dog walker. We're selling flowers. So what about this scenario? So you have someone, I know it's not exactly the case in the movie, but let's say Mr. Ryan Gosling here, he is a relationship coach. So he works with men and women. His goal is to help people find their life partner, so they can get married. What is the value there? Why would somebody pay for that? Okay, we've got For Love to date. Getting more confident about yourself, definitely. You know, it's funny because there's these softer coaching fields, life coaching in general, things like relationship or dating coaches. You even see things like creativity coaches or mindfulness coaches, like very specific things that it's very easy to look at from the outside and judge, like, oh, like how could someone pay for that or that, and people do that. Even for me, when I say that I'm a coach, people will judge, like you're stereotypical like accountant or lawyer, right? But the truth is, in this kind of the softer skills areas is where you can often end up charging a lot more money than your typical sort of profession. um, So the relationship coach ideally has access to a broader network that can use to help find the client a better match that he may not have access to without the coach. Awesome. So that's going to be, that's a good example of what we would say, like in copywriting, you would say that's a feature. So there's this concept of you have features and you have benefits. And features are things that are sort of traits or things you can do. So that's a great example is I have this big network, I can connect you with more people than you would have on your own. Benefits, or if we're looking here at sort of the value people receive, is then what? What is that ultimately the person gets? And if you follow this train forever, like then what? Then what? It ultimately comes down for most people to want to be accepted and wanting to be loved. That's sort of our, not with every product, but with most products, with most people, that's kind of what motivates us deep down, like from babies, right? And then we build all these complicated layers of issues and weird stuff and whatever on top of it. And so thinking about those underlying reasons of what people would, like, what are they really kind of wanting deep down? And so if you're thinking of like a relationship coach, the obvious is obviously like meet someone, but you go deeper the why, and there's the obvious of people, you know, want a partner, of course. You might have other stuff like their friends are all getting married, so not only do they feel sort of like alone because they don't have a partner, but their social circle is drying up because, you know, couples get married, have kids, they're not hanging out as much or something, or they're getting pressure from their parents and it's really awkward in terms of family events, or they don't want to let their parents down or something like that, or you know, different things that come up that way in terms of why it might be more valuable. So you might have someone where you think like, why would they get a relationship coach? Like, you know, what's the rush? And they're like, well, like here's the rush. I work 60 hours a week. My friends are all getting married. It's worth it for me to spend $300 an hour to get help in this. I want to get it covered. It's an important part of my life, that sort of thing. Um, cool. So ultimately, how much you earn is going to come down to these three things. It is your skill level, which is why I am always an advocate of improving your skills. Whatever it is you do, practice, get better, practice, get better. Whether that's just, you know, practicing literally, whether it's reading books, whether it's, you know, whatever that is, taking courses or something, get better at your actual skill, that thing you offer to people, because the better you're at with it, the more confidence you'll feel, which is also this last part, the belief in yourself. You'll feel more confident about yourself, and you'll also be able to deliver more, like a higher quality work. Your value proposition is a couple things. It's how you position yourself with your clients, so how they sort of see you, how they see your offering. It's also the what you actually do for them, right? So it's figuring out, and again, we're going to jump into some questions on how you can do this. It's figuring out what they actually will benefit from. It's not about like selling what you want to sell them. It's about learning what they want, what maybe not even what they want, what they need, what will actually help them get to their goals, and then giving that to them. And that's where the value proposition comes in. And the third is your belief in yourself. I mentioned a couple stories where my own insecurities almost cost me thousands of dollars, right? And having that, in this case, that extra belief pushed on me by a mentor or a friend really helped with that. One thing with confidence, I've written a few books around confidence, and you have a mix of things. You have psychological issues and different things in terms of our beliefs, which we can build. And there's also a really practical part of it. So often when someone's like insecure about their work and they're worried about their clients, like, oh, I don't know if they're going to like it. Sometimes, like some people, they poured their heart and soul into that work and they're just overly anxious. Other times, I'll dig deeper with someone and really they sort of half-ass the work, or they're not putting in the hours at getting their skill level up. And so when you build your skill, that gives you the ability to give more value, and ultimately it will make you believe in yourself more, because usually our own self-assessment or confidence or self-image, yes, there's some weirdness to it, but usually it's fairly logical. And so if you're really working hard and you're getting better and better at what you do, then you're going to find that your confidence will adjust as well. So you want to ultimately answer this question, and this is not a question that you'll necessarily be able to answer today. If you do, actually, that would be amazing. But this is a question that you'll be asking over and over, and it's something that I will ask myself and reflect on and try to always be improving. So it's more of an ongoing journey of getting to this perfect place, if you will. But it's where, how, and to whom can I offer the most value or the greatest value in the most enjoyable way. And usually, like, I had the enjoyable way because you want to be obviously enjoying what you're doing. If you can give a lot of value to someone by doing work you hate, that's not a really good recipe for life happiness as well. So this is a really good question to reflect on. And yeah, when look at it, like what will probably happen is you'll reflect on this question if you see value in it yourself, and you'll come up with something over a couple of weeks, over a month, and then you'll drill deeper, and then maybe 6 months later you'll work with a few clients and you'll have a few more insights, and you'll keep kind of narrowing that down. And with that, every time you narrow it down, you'll usually improve the value that you can offer and increase your rates and what you're earning as well. So when you're going from working sort of the like very traditional job trading, like, okay, I show up, I work, I put in this time, to working for yourself, to going after clients, you've got to change how you're thinking. And unfortunately, a lot of people think about CVs or resumes. I think in Europe it's CVs, they call them, and in at least Canada, I think in the US as well, you guys call them, or we call them resumes. And the resume approach is selfish. It is all about me and how special I am, right? And this is the resume approach to selling, which does not work, which is all about you. What have you achieved? What have you learned? What certificates do you have? And so imagine you've got a graphic designer here, right? And you're trying to sell your services, they're trying to sell their services, sorry, as a classic selfish salesperson. Hey, I'm a graphic designer, I know how to use Adobe Illustrator and Photoshop, and I have 2 years experience. Selfish, right? All focused on what they know, what they've learned. Can you pay me $100 an hour, right? What they want. To which point a client would probably say, well, I paid the last designer $20 an hour. How about 20? The last designer had 2 years experience too. The last designer, all designers know Illustrator and Photoshop pretty much. So why would I be paying you any more than that? To which the selfish designer would say, that's way too low. Look at my good portfolio and my testimonials. Me, very selfish way of thinking. Dan said I should be earning $100 an hour by now. To which point the client would either tell you to leave or maybe offer you $25 for that event, right? For that work. So what if you turn this around, and rather than being selfish, rather than focusing on on yourself, you focus on the other person and what they will get. So you would say something like, I help entrepreneurs visually tell their story before their words get the chance. See here, you're not, now I'm not saying never have a job title like copywriter or graphic designer, but you're not turning yourself into a commodity by just saying, I'm a graphic designer, I'm the same as every other one, right? I'll help you align your message with your target audience so the instant they land on your website or social media page, they think, damn, this company is for me. This will lead to lower bounce rates on your website, more visitor conversions, and more sales of your product without you having to do any more work. So this is focused on how you will help them and the results they will get. To which point, I am sure that you would just get handed a credit card, their car, whatever it is at that point, because a client is going to want to hire you. Not always, of course, but a lot more than the normal approach. And so when we want to look at the other person, when we want to go from being sort of selfish, pay me, just here's my rate, here's my CV, pay me, to really delivering the most value, we need to learn how to listen, how to shut up. And the problem is, isn't she awesome, the pirate? We want to learn how to sell without talking, but we've learned that selling is this fast talking salesman, right? Hey, order today, you can get this and this and this, blah, 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 right? And this is why a lot of people who are more introverted or more creative and don't like, talking a lot or pressuring someone, they think they can't sell, and they will say that they cannot sell, blah, blah, blah. The truth is that this style of selling, this talking fast, this pressuring people, is not only really uncomfortable, as you might know, and not that fun for most people, but it's actually a crappy way of selling and not very effective. A better way to be selling is consultative selling, where you are listening, you are almost more like a therapist, and you are listening to them. And in this approach, I'm going to go through 4 questions you can use with this approach. But a general guideline to give you a sense if you are doing this properly is you should be talking for between 10 and 20% of the time, no more. If it's even less than that, fine. If it's 5%, great. You've got a client who probably talks a little too much, but great. If you're talking more than 20%, and even 20% is sort of pushing it, you're doing it wrong in terms of your sales presentation. It's not the right approach. Your client should be talking, you should be learning. And you only learn usually by listening. It is sort of funny that I'm teaching this, but because we're on a webinar, I have to talk for 100% of the time. And there's some humor there, I think. So these questions, I'm going to go through 4. They should come up in every meeting you have. And this approach, it can be really, really effective, to the point where it was actually used by a Nigerian scammer. I kid you not. I have a YouTube video where I talk about this. It was used by a Nigerian scammer back at me. And it's someone I hired as a freelancer, actually as sort of a project manager to help manage parts of my business. And he seemed amazing, and I was really excited, but I got sort of a week and a half into working with him, and I'd been quite busy during the first week, so I hadn't been paying too much attention. And about 10 days in, I realized something was off. And I realized that basically all he did was like listen and ask questions and then occasionally copy and paste things from Google when I asked him things, and would email me responses from Google. Like I asked, like, how will you stay disciplined and focused managing different projects? And if you put that question in Google, it will show you an answer. And that answer is what he copy and pasted to me in the email response. I might not be the smartest person, but either way, it's an effective strategy, because it works. When you listen to people, it works for a few reasons. As a sales tool or technique, it works because when you listen to people sharing, what they want or what they're doing, it triggers something where they're like, okay, this person cares, and they don't really remember that you weren't talking. They remember that they had like a good conversation because they got to talk about the things they want. But more than that, and the reason that it's really effective for delivering value, is you actually get to know your clients and how you can help them. Because if you go into a meeting and you're just talking like the whole time, like this webinar, you don't learn about the client and how you can help them specifically. So if you go into a sales call and you tell them like, hey, I went to this school and I have these degrees and I have this experience, blah, 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 you don't know about like what challenges they have, what are their actual long-term goals, how can you really help them? And so you're in a really bad position to actually offer them something really good. And once you've pitched them on a product, you can't really change what you're going to do for them that well. Where when you ask them questions and really listen and get to know them, then you're able to give them way more value and help them a lot more. So aside from the fact that it's usually a more comfortable and enjoyable sales meeting for you and the other person, aside from the fact that it's more effective, it will actually allow you to help the person a lot more and provide a lot more value. So the first of the 4 questions you want to ask, and these aren't necessarily in the same order in every meeting, but roughly they are here as I've laid them out. But once you learn them more, you can be a bit of an artist and sort of play around, like ask this question now, and then, oh, I'm going to mix it around, and it can become a bit of an art as well as a science. The first question is, what is the most important thing you're trying to accomplish with this project? Because what can happen there is a client will come to you with what they think they need. So they might come to you and say, hey, I need a 5-day consulting package, or I need a workshop, or I need a website. But they might not actually really understand what you do well, and that might not be the right thing to solve their problem. And so what you want to figure out here is ultimately, why are they hiring you? What is, at the end of this project, what are they trying to accomplish? Because you might have a better way to help them. You might realize that there's an easier way to do it. There might be a more effective way to do it. Or you might also realize like the thing they want isn't going to get them to their goal. And so what would end up happening is you do this thing for them that they asked for. It doesn't get them to their goal. They tell everyone that you suck and they didn't get to their goal, but you didn't know that was their goal. And if you knew it was their goal, you wouldn't have told them to do the project they hired you for, right? So you always got to know the big picture. The other advantage here is if you know their big picture, you can maybe have other services you offer. Maybe you can, instead of it being a $1,000 project, it becomes a $5,000 project or a $10,000 project, because you find out about all their bigger goals and you say, hey, like this is going to be more, but if I do this and this for you, it's going to have 10 times the results. Are you interested in me telling you about that, or like putting together a proposal? And so this is a really good question. That's why you want to go through that. The next thing you want to know is, what is their main business goal for the next 6 to 12 months? And this is important to understand the overall picture, right? Sometimes your project might be the centerpiece of their business. It might be the main thing they're doing. Often it's a small piece of it. And so understanding everything they're doing gives you a chance to understand how things work together and other ways you might be able to help them. Maybe it also might let you know other people you could refer to them. Maybe there's a colleague who offers a different service, and now you can refer that colleague. Your client's happy because they got a great referral. Your referral's happy because you got them a new client. Then they send you a client. All this kind of good stuff can come out of this. One thing I'll mention, if you're dealing with a very small business owner, like you're dealing specifically with the owner, there's a good chance their personal goals and their business goals are related. So feel free to also ask them about their personal goals. Like, hey, I love talking to other entrepreneurs. What are your own goals for the next 6 to 12 months? Like, what are you trying to accomplish as well? They might often be related, and it's just a chance to get to know them more as well. Next question seems redundant, but it is not. It's how does the project relate to your larger business goals? And this is important because you want to understand the full picture, basically, right? You don't want to be guessing at things or assuming things. And that's why even if you think you know how they relate, I would suggest asking this question. The worst thing you can do is leave a meeting with a client with a vague understanding of a project and hope you'll figure it out later. Or almost worse than that is to leave the project thinking leave the conversation thinking the project is something, but it's something else. I remember I was talking to someone and they said, hey, this project is, the client's not happy like with this copy. And, can you give me some advice? And so I looked through the copy and, it was sort of confusing. And I said, okay, like, what does the client do? Like, explain their business to me. They said, well, it's like sort of an engineering firm. Okay, like who are their clients? What do they do? It's like something to do with technology. Do you know what your client does? Not really. It was like complicated on the phone and I didn't really get it, but they hired me. Cool. You're, excuse my French here, you're fucked. Because at that point, you can't go back to your client after you've done the draft and say, by the way, what is your company? Like, I wrote your website copy and your about page and I didn't know what you did. So what can happen is when we're starting out, we get nervous. You get on a sales meeting with a client and you don't totally understand what they do, or you don't totally know the project. But for whatever reason, they want to hire you already. They're like, yeah, cool. Can you do this? Like, we're in a hurry. And your instinct will be to say, yeah, I don't want to risk losing this client. I don't want to ask too many questions. And you'll end that call with them and you won't know how to do a good project or how to help them or what their goals are or whatever. So it's always better to ask more questions. If the client's in a rush, say, definitely, but can I email you some more questions tomorrow? Because I really want to understand your company and that well. It's so much better to get clarity up front than later, because it just, as you can imagine, it looks really bad on you if you get in the middle of a project and you don't know like who their customers are or what they do. One trick I use, if I think it might sound like a stupid question, is I will always say like, I'm pretty sure I know what that is, but I'd rather be sure of it because we're dealing in such detail here. Or could you explain that to me like you would explain it to your clients? I want to learn sort of how you would explain it as a human, not what's written on your website, but how would you say it to me, right? It's always better to look a little dumb. Sometimes, like if people were to listen to my meeting with copywriting clients, they would think that I was missing a few screws. Like I would ask really basic questions, but it's good. You get the details, you don't miss anything, you don't make false assumptions and end up in a situation where it gets really kind of rocky later. Always ask more questions rather than less. Cool, makes sense? I know I'm really harping on this point, but it's a big one, and it's happened to me, and I know it happens to a lot of people where you sort of rush through those meetings, and it's way better to sort of slow down. And the other thing that does happen when you slow down and take charge of that meeting with your client, or if you're doing like on Upwork, dealing with proposals, if you take charge and say, hey, I need to go through these questions, I need to do this, it's a good power play. It shows them that you're confident, that you're professional, that you know what you're doing. And rather than lose the client, you're more likely to get the client, and they're more likely to treat you with a lot more respect. So the last of the 4 questions is, why did you want to meet with me today? And this is an interesting question because you would think probably, right, the time to ask this is at the beginning of the call. But the right time, actually, the way I would use it is at the end of the call. And the reason is, if you ask it at the beginning of the call, you're going to get a answer about the project. So if at the start of the call you say, why did you want to meet with me today? The client is actually going to talk about this project, right? Well, the reason I want to meet with you today is we're trying to make a new website, blah, blah, blah. If you ask it at the end of the project, or the end of the conversation, sorry, it's like 2:30 a.m. here, rather than sum up the project, they're going to walk you through why they want to hire you specifically, or how they think you can help them. So you'll get a better insight into like why they want you and how you can work together. So imagine this, you've been talking to this client for 45 minutes, an hour, you've asked them questions, you know about their website or their employees or whatever it is you're going to be helping them with. You know about their goals, and you ask them this question. And so it leaves a few possibilities. One thing is they say something like, well, I just wanted to sort of get some, price quotes or figure out who's out there to hire. If that's the case, you know that you're in a very early stage and they're probably not ready to hire you yet, right? But they're getting that kind of like, you know where you're at. What they're more likely to say is something like, well, you came referred from, Chris. Chris told me some really good things about you, and I thought it could be a good fit. Or I really liked your website. It seemed like you know what you're talking about. Or basically whatever that answer is going to be, it's going to be about why they want to hire you, not why they want to meet with you. And why that's really cool is, rather than having that meeting where you get to the end and you say, all right, now you need to buy, like, here's the pen, sign the contract, and it gets into that awkward sort of 1980s sales meeting style. Rather than all that happening, you just say, why did you want to meet with me today? And they will explain why. And if it's sort of a positive answer, like they liked your website, you were referred, they need help, anything like that, anything that doesn't sort of say, I don't want to work with you, then all you say, you don't hard sell, you don't whatever, you just say, great, would you like me to put together a proposal for you about how we could work together? That's it. You don't have to push them, you don't have to whatever, you just say it that way. And they're never going to say no. And at that point, you want to obviously write a great proposal and go that next step. But if you went through this process with them and they've explained to you like why they wanted to meet with you, and then you go through, would you like a proposal? Yes. Boom. You put together a great proposal that demonstrates that value, and you've got a great situation without any kind of awkward sales meeting. Cool. So I know some of you have come here specifically to learn more about the training program that I've been talking about this week, and I want to go through that for you. This is the free freelancer program that is available. Basically, twice a year I offer this program, and the reason I do it that way is it is all done live. It's a proper interactive program. It's not a series of video courses put up somewhere or anything like that. It is done as a proper group interactive training. And because of that, I can only offer it a couple times a year because there's only one of me. And so this week is the week where admission is open to the program if you think it might be a good fit for you. I want to go through some of what's included in the program and who it might be right for, if it might be a good fit for you. The program is set up as a very small group. So usually there will be 10 to 12 people in the program taking part, and we will go through, like when we have a group coaching call or a live training, there's usually about 8 people on the call together. So it's something that is very personal. It is not, hundreds of students. It's something where each participant in the program, I am mentoring. I know like about your business, about your goals, about like your challenges, what you're trying to accomplish. And there's a lot of like one-on-one interaction and feedback there. And so it's obviously we go into a lot of strategy and tactics and specific things you can do, but where a lot of people find value in the program is on actually taking action on following through on stuff. So if you've taken a bunch of programs before where you've learned all these skills, but you never really implemented and get clients or follow through or that sort of thing, then you might find this is the right fit for you. The first component of the program is we have group coaching calls, and these happen roughly every second week, and they're a chance to go through whatever it is that you're dealing with. It could be negative, like challenges. Maybe you're finding yourself struggling to stay organized or following through that week, or opportunities, like you have a new client and you're putting together the proposal for them, and you don't know how much you should charge or what you should offer or like how to set it up or whatever that is. You can bring that to the call and we can go through it live and get that interactive feedback of like, no, change those words or set this up that way or whatever that happens to be. You don't have to attend live, so you can send in your questions as well and get that answers. Although whenever it does work, I would definitely encourage you to join live, because a big part of it is like that human part, because when we're at least for me, is my past experience with it, but when you're working for yourself, it can be tough because usually, at least in your first few years, you're not surrounded by other freelancers and entrepreneurs. So you're one of the few people doing what it is you're doing, right? You don't necessarily like have that peer group and that support. And it can be kind of lonely sometimes too when you're just starting, right? And so that's why I think attending live and having that group is really important. And we make the calls, as you might imagine, if you follow my YouTube channel or my other stuff, is we make the calls fun. There's a lot of kind of joking and that sort of thing in them as well. It is probably we cover some pretty high-end business concepts, but it's probably the furthest thing from a traditional business training in terms of the environment. We try to keep it really, really fun and engaging. The next part of the training is this core foundation you're going to get, and with this, it's 6 modules that cover really the foundation to have success with your business and to set you up for some of the live training as well. So for this, I am going to hop on over to, so you should see my screen now as well. So it's one of those really long pages. You think it's hard to read, try making it. So the first module is all about setting up that foundation and looking at things like mindset, changing your thinking from going from kind of the 9-to-5 attitude or being fixed around having to be in one place or a set schedule, and making that change in terms of your thinking, and also looking at some different possibilities of how you might want to be setting your life up. The second module is if you're just like, you're not quite sure exactly where that focus is for you, so you're trying to figure out a few different freelance options, like Should I do graphic design or copywriting? This is a really powerful module where it will help you go through different freelance opportunities and help you narrow that down. It's also a chance, if you're already doing well as a freelancer, to get a sense of other opportunities of people you might want to partner with for referrals. One of the strategies I talk about, the Beer Buddy referral strategy, is all about having complementary partners. And so this is a great way to get those partners. Figure out who the right partners are, I should say. Module 3 is where it really gets into I would say the really valuable concept. Sometimes people will skip these first 2 modules at first and dive right into this, because this is where the program will pay for itself kind of tenfold. Module 3 is really looking at core business elements. And a lot of online training programs, they talk about a very niche thing, like here's how you do this one thing to get clients using Facebook ads or whatever, but they don't really cover like how do you build your brand, what is the difference between sales and marketing, how to be thinking about things, how do taxes work, all these sorts of things, and you need to know this stuff as well. So module 3 is that core foundation for yourself. Module 4 is getting really deep into the selling side and the proposals as well. And so in this is where you're going to learn how to raise your rates with new clients, as well as some strategies you can use to actually raise your rates with existing clients, which is a challenging thing. And it's not something that can always happen, unfortunately, because we have these psychological set points, but you can always push it a little bit, and sometimes you can double or triple it by changing how you're like setting everything up in terms of your charging to get by those set points. And also going to look at, like, with proposals, how do you deal with difficult clients and having that proposal set up so you're paid. So one of the things is I have always been paid by clients. I've never had a client sort of disappear, and yet I watch some videos for freelancers or by freelancers where they talk about 20% or 30% of their clients don't pay for the work. That's crazy. And so we will cover like how to set up your proposals, how to get paid properly on time and not having headaches. Because the thing with not getting paid is not only do you not get paid, which sucks because you weren't paid, but it eats you up as well, where you're like thinking about that client who didn't pay you, and then you are probably less likely to be as focused and hardworking with future clients because you're worried they may not pay you because past clients didn't, and it creates this whole thing. And so yeah, you want to make sure that that you get paid, because it causes a heck load of issues as well. Module 5 is all about the marketing, and so we'll really be focused on that. How do you build basically your marketing machine so that you have an activity you can do, you have something you can do where you're going to consistently be producing results and getting clients. And so sometimes this happens with freelancers where you need clients, but you don't really know how to get the clients. So you have the time, but you're like, I don't know, I can keep posting on Facebook telling people they should hire me. I can I don't know what else to do. And so this is where we're going to be building that for you, basically coming up with your plan. It's not the same plan for everyone. I think that's stupid. You should design a marketing plan based on you and what you'll enjoy and the kind of person you are. So if you're like a creative person, an artist, we'll have a strategy that works really well for you, not like the same one-size-fits-all thing. And that way you'll have a outlet for your energy that you could pour energy into and always be getting clients. And then module 6 is about mastery. And this is where we're going to talk about like personal focus, about shiny object syndrome a little bit, about things like health as well, and handling your scheduling and how do you plan things out in that. Because ultimately you don't want to start down this path. Maybe you become location independent and you start working for yourself, and then you end up having to go back home because you don't have like the follow through, right? Or you're not making enough money or that sort of thing. And that would suck. If you choose to move back home because you miss it, awesome. But having to would be terrible. And so this module is really trying to keep you out of that. And so those are the core video elements of it, of the program. This is a fraction of actually what we cover. And let me share this other screen again. More of the training than the pre-recorded videos are live training that we do. So these are, we get on a call similar to this, except it's a different format. So we use the same software, but rather than it being this one way, it's a two-way, same with the group coaching call. So everyone has a microphone. If you want to have your video on as well, it's definitely encouraged, but you don't have to. Some people don't, either because they don't have video or their hair's messy or whatever it is. You don't have to have your video on. But it's more like sitting down together. So when you talk, everyone can hear you, right? And it's more interactive. And so that's what these live trainings are. You don't have to attend live. Everything you will receive as a replay, but attending live is, as I said, I think usually more valuable. So the first live training is on finding your focus. And this isn't about necessarily picking what you should do as your freelance profession. If that's the stage you're at, definitely this will help for that. But it's more about going back to that question of to whom, how, where can you offer the most value? And so that another way to say it is it's like narrowing down, finding your niche, figuring out sort of your exact product offering. If you remember on one of the much earlier slides where I had, there was a product I was offering, or I shouldn't, it's like a product service where it was 2 hours for, I think, $470 or whatever that was, 3 hours for 600 or whatever. That came out of the same approach we will cover here, where basically it was looking at how I can offer the most value and coming up with a really unique service that was fun for me. It was way more enjoyable than the normal work I did and got paid more. And so we'll go through this approach of like narrowing your focus and coming up with a specialized service. We're also going to have a class all on confidence. And this will definitely cover parts that apply to all areas of life, because I do believe that there's a classic self-help saying, it's how you do anything is how you do everything. And I think there's some truth to that, right? So improving our confidence in all areas of life is important, but the focus within this will be more on confidence as it relates to dealing with clients, to negotiation. If a client's trying to push you around and not pay you or get a lower rate, how do you deal with that? How do you have that confidence and assert yourself? The next training is on your marketing strategy. So I mentioned in those core videos, there's a whole module on marketing. This is taking that even deeper. And so the point of these live calls is that when you go through the videos, you're going to get a good foundation and you're going to get that knowledge. And then on the live calls, we dive deeper and you come up with a strategy on the call. You come up with your action plan on the call. So if you're somebody who maybe has a problem with learning a lot but not implementing, like you'll read all these books but you never actually get around to doing it, you never do the exercises, then you're going to find this really helpful, because we will be actually doing the exercises. So Natalie asked, do we get a copy of the presentation slides you use? If you want. I haven't done it before. So you get replays of the live training, or of all these live trainings. But if you wanted just the slides as well, I'd happily send them to you. Yeah. Yeah, one thing you will notice is I'm generally not big and bureaucratic, so I'm always adjusting. If there's something that will help, I'm happy to do it. The next training that is included is on consultative selling. And so we go even deeper. We talked about the 4 questions today and the importance of it. If you just take that, if you just do that, you will see a big impact on your business. But in this training, we go much deeper with it. You'll receive different workbooks. So one of them includes something like 20, 25 questions that you can use in your consultative selling. So depending on your goals and the client, it breaks them into categories. And it also includes a meeting checklist of the things you should be learning in that meeting, so that when you get out of the meeting, you sort of know everything you need to know about the client. And then there's a chance to like do some role plays, do some practices. We just dive deeper in this, so you just get a lot more comfortable with it. Next up, and I should say these aren't necessarily the order we will go through them together in the program. Sometimes I adjust them depending on where everyone's at. So if you choose to join us in the program, the first step of it is there's a welcome form. So a chance for you to reflect on the goals, what you want to accomplish, and we meet one-on-one and just go through things together. And during that one-on-one, it's a chance for me to obviously get to know you a lot better. And depending on everyone in the program, as I said, it's a small group. So I may adjust like the order we go through things, or even add in new modules and new content based on everyone's goals to make sure you get the most out of it. I should say, your proposal is the gap between you have your consultative meeting, you know about the client hires you. What's that middle? And the middle is your proposal. And so in this training, I will go through how do you take that information from the sales meeting, put it together in a really good proposal, and then have that to present to the client. And I will go through my actual proposals I've used for like those 5-figure clients I talked about. All I do is change the names, exact proposals. I walk you through a template you can use and adapt to yourself, and about half a dozen different examples of proposals. And I break down, I don't just give you the proposal, but I break down in the training. I walk you through, like, I put this there for this reason. I did this for this reason. It's not like you'll know the why, and that way you can apply it to yourself in any situation. You're not just stuck kind of filling in a template. You're going to know the why and the psychology behind everything. The next unit, this is something that wasn't in the first class of the program, but has been added since. As I said, it's kind of always growing and being added. This training alone pays for the program and more. It's about creating your website, or if you have your website already, about really fine-tuning it in terms of getting results from it. And so when I was a copywriter, one of the main things I was paid for and sought after for was kind of the website and landing page overall strategy and layout. How do you set up a page and set it up so it's effective? And so that's what we go through in this training. This includes written guides where I will walk you through exactly how to set up your website from a strategic point of view. Like what pages should be where, what text should be on each page, how to do the copy for everything. You then have a chance to do that, and this is where, again, a little of the pressure comes in. You don't have to do it on our deadlines, not everyone does, but if you want to, it's a chance to get your site up or adjust your site if it's already up to tweak it based on this. Then we'll go through it as a group and you'll get feedback on all the tweaks. And these have been really huge in the past, in the last class, where like students have been getting a lot of value out of that. And like the transformations on their websites have been awesome. You get feedback from a lot of people, obviously, including myself. So it's a chance to have a really effective website. And if you've built a website before, or paid someone to build a website, that it can drag on a lot, like the process, because it requires you to really figure out a lot of things. And so this element of the guidance and a bit of the pressure and group feedback can save you months on that process, and you'll end up with a very effective website, something you'd probably spend $2,000, $3,000, $4,000 hiring someone for. And, you know, that's pretty awesome, I think. So with everything in the program, you get obviously online access, but you get offline access. So I've set it up so that you don't have to like log on to a website to watch the videos with internet. You can download them all and put them on your phone or your TV or whatever. Watch them at 1.5 times speed if you want, things like that. So you don't have, it's very easy to access the content. There's also app access, so you can watch it on your phone, iPhone, Android, tablets, whatever. With the group coaching calls, you're getting lifetime access. And this includes, this is a webinar, like a special part of being on the webinar today. So with the program runs for about 4 months, and we have very kind of frequent group coaching calls and training calls. But you're able to come back then when I'm doing other, like the next version of the class, you can come back and attend those group coaching calls. And I usually do calls between the classes as well. So there's basically over the next year, there'll probably be 20 group coaching calls you can attend. And what I'm doing with it for now on this webinar is lifetime access to that. And so you've probably seen programs where it's like $100 a month and you get like 1 or 2 Q&A calls and like a Facebook group or something like that. This is a lot more kind of interaction and than that. And it's being done as lifetime access. I also have office hours with the program, and what that means is if you want to work with me one-on-one on something, there's a something you want to go through in detail or get my feedback on, and you don't want to bring it to the group calls, you can set up one-on-one times to meet with me, and we can go through that together. Of course, with everything, you're getting like templates. So for the proposals, for sales meetings, for your marketing, as much as I can give you like templates and guides and other things you can work with, I've done that. I'm always creating new content with it as well. So if you say to me, hey, like this training was great, but could you create some templates or whatever, I'll do that. And last but definitely not least with it is there's also an accountability partner program. So if you want to be partnered up with someone in the program who is either at a similar level with you or maybe at a different level, or has a complementary business where they can help you out and you can help them out, maybe you refer business back and forth, I can partner you up and provide some guidance in terms of how to meet together and that sort of thing. And so the program, including everything, everything that's included, so the video training, the live events, the group coaching, and as I said, there should be roughly 20 of the live group coaching calls over the year, could be more for that matter. I have it here as 1 year alumni access, but as I've said on the webinar, it will be lifetime access. So that means that not only can you come back to the trainings, like the group coaching or the live training in future programs, but any new content I add within the free freelancer, you have access to. So since the first version of the program, which was last year at this time, and now I've added significant amount of content, and I'll be doing that moving forward. So you get all that. The templates, the one-on-one mentorship, and all the bonuses, which I will be covering. And it's either $349, 3 payments of that, or 12 payments of $99, whichever you prefer. I should note that I have set up the currencies. You can see it on the website, the free freelancer, in euros, Australian, Canadian, and pounds, as well as set prices. So when you pay on that, you will pay in your own currency at what a fixed price. It was a pain in the butt, but I set it up because we're a very international program. So I use the US dollars here to give like a guideline, but you can likely pay in your own currency and you don't have to worry about like the fluctuation in currencies. It stays set on your end and then I have to deal with fluctuations. There are 3 options in terms of joining the program, but for the vast majority of people, this middle option is the best. And for the last 2 classes, this was really the only option and what I would recommend. I've added these 2 more based on some feedback I've got from people and just kind of a hunch of what could be handy in some cases. So the DIY plan, the do-it-yourself plan, is if you really like you want the content, the strategies, the templates, the workbooks and everything like that, but you don't either have time right now to make it work in your schedule. Maybe you have a full-time job and you want to quit and start your own business, but maybe in a year, and you want to be gaining this knowledge and doing it right, but you don't have time to be coming to the group coaching and that right now, then this could be a good fit. The other time it might be a good fit, obviously, is in terms of the investment. It's a lower investment. You can, if you want at any point, upgrade from this plan to the normal plan if you decide to. The other option on the right-hand side here is if you have maybe a bit more of a complex business where you think you'd like to spend more one-on-one time together to do some additional one-on-one coaching time together. You want to be able to email me like with time-sensitive stuff. Hey, can you help me with this or that kind of thing? Maybe, and I'm this kind of person, maybe you're a little high maintenance, like you want that extra personal support or you just want the best. Then this package would be maybe right for you. It's going to include more one-on-one time together essentially. But as I said, every testimonial you read about the program, and that is based on the complete version, which is the version that's always been offered, and I think right for almost everyone. So you can find, again, more details of this on the site. I'll go through a few of the bonuses here. Bonus number 1 is on copywriting, and this is really important, not if you are a copywriter, but for any freelancer, any coach, any consultant. I believe that copywriting, which is the ability to persuade or just communicate effectively really in words, is so important, because whether you're emailing with clients or writing your website or doing a proposal, understanding kind of how to properly communicate with people is essential to succeed in business. And with this training, you're going to be in the top 5% of freelancers and entrepreneurs, maybe even above that in terms of your knowledge on copywriting. This is something that obviously I've done as a profession and I've also taught before. And so this, like, if you are not a copywriter, if you're a copywriter, you'll learn some stuff here as well. But if you are not a copywriter, you're going to pick up a lot of skills that will really help with your business overall, be really valuable. The next bonus is a special training on moving yourself into that expert status through workshops, through speaking, or through writing. And so for me, and I mentioned this a little bit in my story, was the jump between being a like copywriter and having my rates really jump and clients coming after me, you know, when I was on the other side of the world and like, I want to hire you. A part of that was around doing some speaking. And that can have a really big impact. And you don't have to wait nearly as long as you would think to do it. I did my presentation 8 months, 9 months into being a copywriter. And it wasn't necessarily easy to do. It took some work, but it was definitely worth it. But I know not everyone can, or wants to, I should say, not can, but wants to do public speaking. Or you might also be traveling and it's not really convenient for you. And so we'll also cover how to do it with like writing. You can do it writing guides or doing videos or audio. There's lots of ways, so it doesn't matter if you're shy or whatever, but it's more about how you can position yourself and yeah, just have people sort of see you that way by giving value and by educating them. The next training is on setting up your perfect day. And so this is just, it's a mix of productivity, essentially, like how to set up your schedule and prioritize and get things done, but also how to do it strategically so you're doing things you enjoy as well. You're having like a good life. You're doing the like whatever important to you, spending time with family or exercising, eating out, but also getting done the most important things. So it's not like how to use a calendar. It's more about prioritizing and planning. And then the next bonus is on additional income streams. So this is looking at more on the passive income side, on the extra things you can offer beyond your regular service. And it might not be a training you apply right away. If you're just starting out, it might be something you come back to in a year. It just depends where you're at, but it's an important part of that evolution of your business. There's some other bonuses that I did add in this year as well. I could talk about these each a long way, but it's 3 a.m. here, and I'm sure you're tired of hearing from me. The email marketing masterclass is a chance, if you do want to have like your own newsletter where people can join. I'll go through my best advice on that. It's something I use extensively in my own business. I might actually, believe it or not, be becoming a professor on this topic. I'm talking to a university now about teaching it at an MBA school, believe it or not. I don't know how I will do as a professor. It'll be interesting. But yeah, needless to say, it's a topic I know a lot about that can be have a really big impact on your business. Putting yourself out there is about like, how do you be you and get over those insecurities? Whether you want to do like YouTube or articles or presentations or just sell your services, it can like be nerve-wracking initially, where you're like, even just writing for clients, it tore me up nerves-wise for the first few months, because I was always worried about like, are they judging my work or what do they think and all that. And of course, like if you watch me on YouTube now I'm kind of over the top sometimes, trying to be funny or do whatever and just be myself. And so that's what this training is all about, is if you want to start speaking or writing and that, just getting comfortable being yourself and being personal. And then the other thing here is 30 days to $1,000 a month of extra income. This is not if you're just starting out. So if you're just like, this is day one for you, I'm not saying you'll be earning $1,000 in a month. You very well might, but I don't want to set those sort of expectations. It's better to sort of plan for the worst and work really hard than think it will be easy. But this is for if you're already working. So say you're earning $2,000 or $3,000 a month right now as a copywriter or as a programmer. How do you add that extra $1,000? And it's just going through like a series of events you can do over a month and just like accelerate and get yourself there. And special bonuses, because you are on the webinar, because you are here live, there are two things. One is the lifetime access I mentioned. So this means that as long as I'm running the program, which will be a while, it's something that I have no intention of stopping. It's kind of my life's work, really. You can come back and attend future trainings, the group coaching, all that. So what will happen over time, because we already have a year of students and people coming back from the first class, is eventually there'll probably be some evolution where we have different tiers of group coaching. So you have like the really experienced people who are like coming and getting more like expert advice on stuff, and more beginner. I don't know, but I'm excited for it. So you get this lifetime access to come back for the group coaching, any other training. And the other thing, just for the webinar, is 2 one-on-one coaching calls with me. You can use these how you want to use them. You can use them during the program. You can use them after in the future. We can work on whatever you want. We can work on your website, your proposals, your plan, whatever that happens to be. It's a good bonus. That's what I'll say. Sorry, again, it's 3 a.m. here, guys. 3 a.m. Everything is on the website here and a whole lot more in terms of what I've talked about. So it's dreamsaroundtheworld.com/thefreefreelancer. The bonuses I mentioned are meant to be if you do join live on the webinar. And I know that's a very like infomercial sort of thing, right? Join on the webinar. But I think we know that like life comes up, life gets in the way, which happens a lot, right? Where you want to do something, you're on like the webinar with me now, and you think this will be great, it will be a good fit, you'll get a lot from it, and then sort of like, well, maybe I'll look at it tomorrow, and maybe I'll check it out later, and that sort of thing. And so I'm keen to reward taking action, and that's why I do the bonuses this way. I've also found, and this isn't always the case, but I found that some of the students who have been kind of quick decision makers with me, where they've taken action and stuff, it's a positive thing where that kind of transfers into other stuff. It's like, I'm doing this, like I'm all in, I'm committed, and then they sort of like that builds more momentum. So that's why I do it. With everything, if you're a little unsure still, if you're not someone who's been following me for a while and you don't really know, like, is this guy going to be good or not, essentially, you are basically risk-free in terms of my guarantee with it. And there's 3 parts of it. One is just a general satisfaction guarantee, right? So if you join the program and for whatever reason within the 30 days you don't think it's a good fit, I'll refund your money. You don't have to give a reason. I prefer you do, obviously, because I can work to improve or change things in the future, but you don't have to. So easy guarantee. The second is a worth it guarantee. So if you complete the program, you go through everything and you can honestly tell me it wasn't worth the time or investment, or you don't feel that it's really like paid for itself, that it was a great value, then I'll refund you whatever you've paid up to that point, and stop future payments. And the third is the 100% results guarantee. So after you register for the program, as I said, we will meet one-on-one. We have this first call together, and during that call, it's a chance for me to get to know you and your goals. One reason I do it, on a bit of a tangent, is I mentioned this a bit before, I will adjust the training a little bit on the fly based on who's there and try to really like think of each person. So on my screen, I have 2 monitors, and I'll be looking at everyone's sort of name or video, and I'll be trying to do it like you would in a real classroom of like, all right, let's like give an example for Jill, let's give an example for Mike, like adjusting things that way. So that's one reason I do those first meetings, and I found they really have helped with the success of the program in terms of commitment and follow through, which is really high. But after that meeting, we'll talk about your goals and what you want to achieve, or in that meeting. And if after the program, after participating and going through it, you don't think that you've moved closer to those goals, or either move closer or achieve them, depending on the nature of those goals, then I will work with you until you get there. Meaning, if that's us working one-on-one together, if that's maybe me referring you some clients, or coming up with some way to help you, I will work with you until you get there. So in terms of the program, I wanted to go through a few just basically stories or testimonials or whatever we want to call them of past students. One thing to know about the group is we have a wide range of people in terms of countries, in terms of ages, in terms of genders. The only weird thing with the program is that it seems we have a lot of people from the Netherlands always. Don't ask me why. I'm somehow really popular there. Yeah, we have a full gauntlet. So we've had people in the program who have 20, 30 years work experience, and they're joining it because they're a bit new to more the online world, or they're new to this kind of consulting. Had people in the program who are just starting from scratch and totally don't know what they want to do. A good example you can see on, if you are on the page, is Ugur, who's from Turkey, and he, heard about like location independence and was like, this is probably all BS, that kind of thing. And he writes it there in the story, but he contacted me, and he was basically starting from scratch totally. And that's not that uncommon. And then we have a lot of, we have people in the program who, like Susan's a good example, where I think she has like, I don't know, way too many master's degrees, like very educated, very good at what she does, at her service, involving like psychology and training, and just did not know the business side in terms of that business thinking, because she was focused on giving great value and doing her work. The problem was she wasn't being paid. I would say she wasn't being paid a 20th of what she should have been for the amount of value she was giving, because she was just like a service oriented person. And so she joined the course to learn the business side of things and how to apply that so she can actually be paid what she should be, by clients. Nathan joined the program as a early copywriter, just started out essentially as copywriting and being location independent. So I think every call Nathan attends, he's in a different country. It at least seems that way. And really joined the program for a mix of the business and the personal side. So the accountability, the training on that side of things, as well as the business training. It's not in this snippet, but if you're on the website, you'll see Nate, a lot of these testimonials, they wrote like pages for me, which is awesome. So Nathan mentions as well in one that like he was able to apply the training and significantly move up like the amount he was earning from clients. You'll have to double check. I think it was $1,500 or $2,500 in terms of his income goal, hitting that per month, moving up. And that, again, check, it's in writing on the page, whatever it is. I'm just trying to think from memory. So let me walk you through something here. Are you guys liking this stuff, by the way? Do let me know in the chat. I'm seeing the odd messages come through as well, but as I said, I feel a bit like a crazy guy, 3 a.m. talking to myself. So let me know in the chat if you're liking this, if you have any questions as well. Tara joined the program. She was actually the very first person who joined back in 2016, and she joined primarily. Well, there's a lot of reasons she joined, but a lot of it was that kind of helping with, I think, the follow through, where she was worried about going back to her job and not wanting to do that, but the group, like, she needed to sort of be pulled in, I guess, or kept in terms of freelancing and have that support. And so when I talked to her about the program, this was before it was even public. It was like, I'm thinking of doing this. She's like, yes, I'm in. Here's my money. And that. So in her case, she was working is working as a copywriter, and joined because she wanted to really like go all in and have that support to follow through and not go back to a job sort of half-assed, if you will. So in terms of the next steps when you join, if first step is completing your first your payment on the page. So if you want to do, well, whichever of the 3 versions you do want to join, if you want to do it as the 12 payment or the 3 payments, that's up to you. after the first payment, you will get like an automated email, but the whole process isn't automated. It doesn't like, okay, here's everything. It just happens. Maybe one day it will, but I prefer to keep it personal because it's, well, it's easier, but also I think it's way more engaging. I've talked to people who do online trainings and they say something like 1 in 10 people finish their programs. And we have like in the like first free freelancer on our last call, we had 9 of the 13 people, and that's like high attendance because people obviously you have time zones or different things. Like people don't make every call. My goal with this program has always been everyone finishes, and I know it's an idealistic thing, and that's why I do it personally because I think that personal connection, even though it's not like passive income or whatever crap people talk about online, it's how you actually can like have a relationship in that. So because of that, once you join, you'll get a very basic confirmation email. But wait for me, I will email you personally, usually within 12 hours, just to say like, hey, it's me, the guy from the webinar yesterday, and then we'll set you up with that the welcome form, and after that we will set up our one-on-one meeting to get to talk together, and then I set you up with like all the video files and the shared calendar and get you set up to attend the events and everything like that. But I don't dump everything on you at once because that's overwhelming and not that helpful. So first thing, basically, make the payment. I'll be in touch personally. Then we set up our one-on-one meeting to talk, and then everything gets set up from there. Cool, awesome, guys. It has been great to have you here. I am going to wrap it on my end. I'm sure there's probably some more questions and conversation to be had, but it's getting a little late here. So I will catch you soon. Let me know by email if anything, if you have any questions come up or want to just chat in general about whether it's going to be a good fit for you in the program. I will see you all soon.